from the AirTech Heating Studios, a Born to Win media production. Welcome to the resurrection of Say It Like You See It.
Are you ready for some football? NFL Divisional Round this weekend. Talking all things football today here on Say It Like You See It, live from the AirTech Heating Studios in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, and live from Fargo. Joining me, my partner in crime, as always, Mighty Q, the Quinn himself. Quinn, it's a Friday. I can feel it. A lot of great football to be played this weekend. Let's get to the pleasantries first, though. How you doing?
Oh, I'm rocking and rolling. Like you said, it's Friday. Got the workout in. It was leg day, so got a pretty good lift in. Got a good, uh, workout schedule going into the weekend, and just kind of feeling good, feeling fresh, ready to get into some playoff football.
All right, let's get into it. First game in the AFC, the NFL Divisional Round of football. We have a lot of great matchups. We've got the Jags and we've got the Chiefs. We've got the Bills and the Bengals. We've got the 49ers and the Dallas Cowboys. And we have the Giants and the Eagles. Let's start with our first game. Quinn, what do you think? Who do we have up first?
Well, up first, the Jaguars are on the road in Arrowhead visiting the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are 8.5-point favorites at home. This is a 3:30 kickoff game on NBC tomorrow, Saturday game, getting it started off. So honestly, I think in this one, it's more kind of a little bit the Jags. Not only do they have to play perfect, they have to play perfect and be perfect. It's kind of like a doubling effect. Honestly, this is a I don't know how to say this. It's not that the game isn't winnable. I think there's definitely ways for them to win. I think Trevor Lawrence plays like he played in the second half only last week. I think their defense somehow decides to stop the Chiefs offense, and they are able to put pressure on Patrick Mahomes and do all that, but their defense isn't built that way. So I don't think they're really going to be able to stop Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense at all. Plus Andy Reid off a bye. It's kind of a pretty uphill battle if you're just kind of looking at just the on paper type spread. I mean, really the game shouldn't be close. I think it has a chance to kind of get ugly. I mean, everyone saw what the Chiefs were doing at the end of the season. They were doing, the ring around the rosy, dancing in the huddle, doing all that crazy stuff because they're, to a degree, they're a little bit bored. Like Andy Reid is such an offensive mastermind that I guarantee they probably score. If they have 10 drives, they'll probably score on 8. And the 2 drives that they don't score on, I think there's a chance that Patrick just heaves one up and it's like he gives them an easy interception. But I think it's going to get ugly. I think it's going to get ugly fairly quick. I think the Jags defense just can't hold up with the firepower that the Chiefs have on offense. And I mean, it's nice for the Jags. They had their playoff win. It was a big emotional win for them. But I think honestly, when it really comes down to it, it's just a Chiefs ball game. It's that simple.
Have we ever had a dynasty in the NFL where we don't talk that much about them during the regular season? I know when Patrick Mahomes first started up and he took over for Alex Smith, he was all everybody could talk about, right, for the first 2 to 2.5 years of his career. And now it's just so expected. We have all these different narratives going on. We are talking about Josh Allen and his sloppy play, but how he throws for tons of yards and tons of touchdowns. We've got Justin Herbert that we're talking about. Can he get the right coach, the right system around him to actually get him to a Super Bowl? Joe Burrow, his situational greatness. Jalen Hurts has had his own narrative for MVP this season. We've got all of these different quarterbacks that we're talking about. And in every single instance, the only constant guy that has just been putting up solid numbers and always ascending is Patrick Mahomes. And this year did it again, put up the most yards of any singular player in NFL history. And he did it without Tyreek Hill. Without Tyreek Hill, his number one weapon, gone to Miami playing with Tua. He just broke the NFL record for the most yards any player has ever had. Insanity. But we don't talk about him. Why? Because like you said, it's boring because the Chiefs just beat everybody. They're just that much better. So when it comes down to the game plan that needs to be executed by the Jacksonville Jaguars, it's going to be, we have to make big plays, but we also have to keep Patrick off the field. How do you do both of those things at the exact same time? That means you have to have like 7 to 8 play drives where 4 out of 5 of those plays are run plays. And then you take one shot down the field to Evan Ingram or Christian Kirk or Zay Jones and you get into the end zone. But that's literally just about all you can do against the Chiefs, because if you put Patrick Mahomes on the field with Travis Kelce, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Juju Smith-Schuster, and that barrage of offensive weapons that he's got, because they're no slouches on offense, right? Just because they don't have Tyreek Hill doesn't mean they don't have a good offense. They are ranked top 3 in every offensive category. I just think it's, like you said, it's almost impossible to stop Patrick Mahomes. If he continues the road that he's on, not only is he looking at his second Super Bowl, but he's already cemented his legacy as a top 5 quarterback of all time.
And I think to that credit, though, with Patrick Mahomes, and I think it was Nick Wright who kind of mentioned it. And I mean, granted, Nick is a very Chiefs-backed kind of homer, given a lot of stuff, but he made a very good point in the fact of people describe what Burrow and Allen are both doing as Mahomesian-like plays. And it's like, if you're describing, hey, you made a play just like Patrick Mahomes, but yet you're not going to say Patrick Mahomes is the most talented and honestly right now the best quarterback in the NFL. And it's like, he sets himself apart from everybody else. Like, yes, Burrow is a great player, but like, he's not Patrick Mahomes. Josh Allen is a great player, but he's not Patrick Mahomes. Lamar Jackson, great player, but he's not Patrick Mahomes. And so like, that's what we kind of keep getting into. And like you said, MVP season, if he wins another Super Bowl this year, I don't know if it's really top 5 anymore. I think now is a legitimate conversation with Brady, because you can make an argument saying how much better the talent is across the NFL now that Patrick Mahomes is going up against, and not only going up against, but just outright destroying competition.
I disagree with that sentiment. I think that if Patrick Mahomes wins another Super Bowl, like you, we both agree that he's already stamped as a Hall of Famer. He's in the top 5 for greatest talents of all time, best quarterbacks of all time. But Tom Brady's got 7. And I know championships aren't everything, but Brady also holds a lot of records. He's done it for the longest time. He's still adding to that. Patrick Mahomes has to at least win the same amount as Joe Montana, in my opinion. He's got to win 4 for him to actually be considered in that vein of the greatest of all time. But I like what you said about standards. And there's an old saying that great players are beating the standard. But Patrick Mahomes is one of one. He is the standard. Like you said, people make Patrick Mahomes-like plays. When people are calling your plays Patrick Mahomes-like, you've done it. You're already the number 1 in the league. You have been for the last 3 to 4 years. Patrick Mahomes, I can't get enough watching this guy play. He is one of the most electrifying and fun quarterbacks I've ever seen play in my life.
100%. I agree with that one. So we're going to get into Saturday game and Saturday night's game. Giants against the Eagles in Philly. Philly coming in as a 7.5 point favorite. This game kicks off at 7:15. It's going to be on Fox Saturday night. So we saw the Giants play fantastic. We saw Daniel Jones probably have the best game of his career. The Giants offense looked phenomenal. The Giants defense didn't really look that great, but they did do a good job in stopping what is a very, very high-powered Vikings offense that is very electric. The difference is Kirk Cousins is not Jalen Hurts. And for as much as I like AJ Brown is kind of a different animal. He is a different receiver. The Eagles, if Jalen Hurts is at least 90% healthy, which if we look at the timeline, it's been roughly about 5 weeks since his injury. He got hurt against the Bears. It's been roughly about 5. It's been roughly, I'd say 5 weeks. And then with the bye, I think it's in total 6 weeks. So 6 weeks. I think his shoulder's okay. He wasn't throwing last week in their bye week. He didn't throw until Friday. When asked kind of, hey, how is it hit the zip on his ball this week? And basically everyone says that he's just fine. So if that's the case, if Jalen Hurts is playing at any level close that he was in basically the beginning to middle part of the season, they did start to see some more turnovers. They saw some more mistakes happen late in the season. And I think that was more kind of some almost like boredness, and some guys were trying some things, and some guys were kind of, not getting lazy, but not being as prepared or not as focused in that week. When you come in, super confident, you're on an 8-game win streak, you're on a 9-game win streak, you're playing phenomenal. You know how you play and you're kind of playing perfect. You get almost above, and like you start not being able to see, hey, we do make mistakes, like mistakes are going to happen. And they just kind of never really recovered from it in the end of the season. Like they just kind of played some sloppy football to end the season out. And their bye week, I think, is actually going to be good for them because it gives them a chance to leave the sloppy play at the end of the season and not just roll right into playing a game. So having that week off, both in terms of getting rest and being able to really get a good intense practice going, I think the Eagles are going to come in playing at home. You know how their fans are. Their fans are absolutely crazy. And the last 2 times that the Eagles are ranked number 1 in the NFC, they made it to the Super Bowl. So at the end of the day, this organization knows what they're doing. They know how to win in playoffs when they're the best team that's in the playoffs. And I think, honestly, this team, if Jalen Hurts can play, like I said, 90% of what he was doing at the beginning part of the season, then this Eagles team is a very good team. And it's a team that the Giants really can't have any chance at standing against. The Giants haven't won back-to-back games since week 6 and 7.
Yeah. So look, it's certainly going to be an interesting matchup. Jalen Hurts, I'm going to start with him because you mentioned his injury. First of all, I just want to say that when you get down to week 18, 19, 20, right before you get to the Super Bowl, everybody's injured, right? Everybody's injured. Every player has got something. It's just a matter of what can you play through. You can play hurt. You just can't play injured. So Jalen Hurts has been playing, or he was injured. I believe now he's going to be playing hurt. Look, I can promise you this, with how cold everything's going to be, taking a week off, he's had the problems with the shoulder. There's not going to be as much zip on the ball. The great thing about Jalen Hurts is he's not a guy like Kirk Cousins. He's not a guy like Dak Prescott, and he's really not a guy like Tom Brady or Justin Herbert for that matter. He's got the ability to do it with his legs, like Lamar Jackson, like Justin Fields, like Kyler Murray. So if anything needs to happen where he says, there are certain plays that I just can't make because of my throwing shoulder, I can make it with my legs. And I think that's what gives Jalen Hurts that extra little bit of oomph, that extra little kick into this game that makes it that 7-point spread. Because if he didn't have the mobility like he does, I don't think this line is -7. I think it's more like -4. And then you mentioned AJ Brown. Boy, God. I mean, here's what I'll say to AJ Brown. I've watched this kid play the entire season, and I had such a hard time figuring out who he was, right? Because he plays so differently than all the other receivers. He's just so big and so strong. I think he's got more strength than even a DK Metcalf. And DK is just huge. So I finally figured out who it is. He is like if you put a plate of armor on Calvin Johnson, Megatron. He's like Megatron, but like 2.0. He's Galvatron. Like, for all my Transformers fans out there, AJ Brown is a different beast. And when you pair him up with a guy like Devontae Smith, who has elite route running, he's got really nice quickness. Speed is still a lot to be desired. He doesn't run a 4.4, but a 4.5, but he's just got such great mechanics and such an uncanny ability to run routes. This duo is almost unstoppable. And then you get Dallas Goedert, who's a wonderful red zone target over the field. He does these little intermediate routes on play action where he's really good. This is a really, really dynamic and fun Eagles offense. And I just don't think, credit to Danny Dimes. You know what? I'm going to give him the nickname now. He was Danny Nichols last week. Now he's Danny Dimes. He outperformed and outshined, and he proved me wrong. He definitely earned his money. He earned his contract. He earned another year. But he does not have the firepower nor the playmaking ability, in my opinion, to beat a team like the Eagles.
I definitely have to agree with you on that. And I think you had mentioned it, that it's, it being -7.5, and it really should be more like -4. And the Giants have been really, really good against the spread. So if anything, I like the Eagles to win, but I do like the Giants to cover.
I would take you on that bet. I don't know if I love it, but I would take it.
Well, we're going to move on ahead to Sunday's game then, where the Bengals, the Bills 5.5-point favorites. This is a 2:00 game on CBS. This is Sunday we're now talking about. And I think this one, the Bengals going in, if you really look at it, I think Joe Burrow has the tougher test ahead of him. I think Josh Allen has more pressure on him. Joe Burrow missing 3 offensive linemen, that's going to be an issue. The Bills are the only defensive coach left in the team, in the playoffs, for that matter. And this has a real chance for Joe Burrow to end up kind of like he was last year. It's going to be another one of those 8, 9, 10, 11 sack games if the Bills play like the Bills are capable of playing. If Sean McDermott is able to drop some pressure and get some good pressure on Burrow, I think that it could be a really, really long day for the Bengals, because for them, yes, they're a deep threat over the top with Jamar Chase. But I think more importantly, what they're going to have to do, what they kind of started doing with the Ravens last week, is they kind of just played boring on offense, just move the ball down the field. They chunked up some time. They made sure to constantly keep scoring. And at the end of the day, they scored enough. They had ran enough time off the clock. Their defense is good enough. They know what they're doing. Now, I definitely think that they gave a very good chance, and I think the Ravens should have won that game if Tyler Huntley, doesn't make that mistake. But it's more the case of the Bengals played solid, and I think last week they were a little flat. And I think they're going to be a little bit more engaged this week, especially with everything that happened in week 17, knowing, hey, this game basically was going to be rescheduled, then from postponed to canceled. So I think this one, the Bengals were up in it. They were upset about the coin toss situation. They don't really know where they were seated at and, what could have happened if the game would have played out, and no one knows. So I think the Bengals are definitely going to come in this one on hot, but at the end of the day, all the pressure is realistically on Josh Allen and the Bills, because if they don't win now, then, I think their window is kind of closing, and this is really the best chance for them to do it.
Two really interesting teams, electric, dynamic teams, but both different ways of getting there. I truly believe that Cincinnati is a great team. They are they're freaking awesome on defense, and offensively, they've got all the pieces to win a Super Bowl. I mean, they got there last year. Their X factor is Joe Burrow. This is a great team. I think the reason the Bills have such a large advantage in this game is because they're a good team, not a great team, a good team, but they have Josh Allen. And I know Josh Allen has been a lot like Brett Favre in the last few weeks, right? Makes a lot of mistakes, throws a lot of picks, but good Lord, when he's slinging it, it is almost impossible to stop, rivaling only that of Patrick Mahomes, two guys with the biggest arms in the NFL. When Josh Allen is on, nobody can beat him. We mentioned Mike Tyson before. Colin Cowherd has kind of dubbed him the Mike Tyson, the Buffalo Bills, the Mike Tyson. But I got to tell you this. If Buffalo comes out and fires on all cylinders, there is no shot in hell the Bengals have of winning this game. Now, if the Bengals can get pressure on Allen and they can force the ball into the hands of Devin Singletary in that Bills run game, they've got a legitimate shot. This is going to be an electrifying game. It's going to be incredibly high scoring. I'm going to say 34-31. But I believe because of his post success in the postseason, Josh Allen comes away with the victory here, and he moves on to his AFC wild card, the AFC Championship game.
I like how you mentioned Devin Singletary in there, because I think that's realistically the only problem that the Bills have on the offensive side of the ball. It's like when their run game is actually existent, like they have a chance to win games. But I don't know. Like you said, I think it's the best matchup of the weekend. But getting into the last game, Cowboys 49ers from San Francisco Sunday night, where the Niners are a 4-point favorite at home. It's a 5:30 kick on Fox. So I think with this one for the Cowboys, it's kind of like the same issue as the Giants. Like Dak had one of, if not his best game ever in his career. Now we're looking at a situation where, hey, is the Cowboys defense going to play as great as they did last week? Is, all of this kind of rolling. It's like this was a massive win, and it was like a bunch of real energy of, they were so happy to go on the road and beat Tom Brady, and it was super amped up. And I think that they wasted a lot of energy last week on the game, where I think they got kind of too high on the fact of, it's like, they did make a bunch of mistakes with Maher and him, missing those kicks, but really at the end of the day, like, that was a giant win for the Cowboys. And it was against a Bucks team that, like, played poorly the entire time and just seemed flat the entire time. Really wasn't a playoff talent level team. And so was it important for the Cowboys to win that game? Yes. I think the Cowboys did put up enough points to make it look like, hey, they might be able to hang. But at the end of the day, the 49ers are stacked at every position. Like, Shanahan has done a tremendous job of building an offense. Brock Purdy is the perfect fit because any quarterback fits in there perfectly. That's the same reason why Jimmy G was able to bring them to Super Bowl, and they had a realistic chance of winning that Super Bowl. And Brock Purdy is kind of the perfect mix of the two quarterbacks that are sitting on the bench right now. You've got Jimmy G and Trey Lance. He's the perfect hybrid of both. He's way more athletic than Jimmy G. He's a lot more accurate with the football than Trey. He's honestly their best option. He's playing phenomenal. He's got tons of confidence at this point, and I think that's only going to carry throughout. The 49ers defense is an absolute juggernaut, and they're stacked at every single position. How can you not say that the 49ers are, if not, you can make an argument that they're the best team in football. I think they're the second best, but they're my pick to make it out of the NFC. And I think they're destined for another matchup against, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. But I think with this game for the Cowboys, like, trying to now play in another big spot after just playing on a Monday night, and that was just a giant win for their franchise. I think this is it for the Cowboys. Like, they've had fun. Congrats. You had your playoff win, but sorry, dude, you guys got to go play the 49ers. Good luck.
All right, I want you to play a little game with me here, real quick.
Okay,
and I promise this is gonna get into my breakdown of this game.
Let's do it.
Who's the better quarterback, Patrick Mahomes or Trevor Lawrence?
Patrick Mahomes.
We think the Chiefs are going to win. Who's a better quarterback, Jalen Hurts or Daniel Jones?
When healthy, Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts, and we think the Eagles are going to win. Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. It's very, very close. But who do we think the better quarterback is?
Josh Allen, but
it's close. I'll give it to you. But we think the Bills are going to win.
To a degree, though, I think that game does. But I see what you're saying. And then in this last
game, Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy. Who's the better quarterback?
Brock Purdy.
No, I don't think so. I think Dak's a better quarterback. But I will tell you this. This is the only game of the weekend where the better quarterback's not going to win. And I'm going to tell you this. Like you mentioned, the San Francisco 49ers are loaded at every single position. Their defensive line is incredible. They've got an unbelievable secondary. Their linebacking core is fantastic. Their offensive line is good. Brock Purdy's been phenomenal over the last 7 or 8 games that he's played. They've got weapons galore all over the place. There is a difference in this San Francisco 49er team than anyone I've seen before. It's almost like they're expecting to win. Before it was, we've got a really young and vibrant head coach, and he's changing the way that football is played. It's an aggressive and physical style. And now it's like, it's almost pity-like. It's like they look at these other teams and they go, God, we feel bad for you. We wish you were like us. Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, 4 guys, all 4 of them, honestly, could have made the Pro Bowl. 3 of them did make the Pro Bowl. One of them, fringe, Brandon Ayuk. It could be a flip of a coin. But good God, does this team just absolutely blow you away? And they can't be stopped. I didn't find one part of their game when they played against the Seahawks that they struggled with. Not one. I couldn't find it in their special teams. Robbie Gould was automatic. I couldn't find it in their offense. Brock Purdy literally broke records as a rookie. And their defense in the second half, granted, every team in the playoffs usually has a good offense, but their defense in the second half was just astonishing. I mean, this is a team that can't do anything wrong. It's almost like every game they play is perfect. It might not be everybody on their team is perfect, but this team is perfect. And the Dallas Cowboys, yeah, they beat up on a really old Tom Brady and a dysfunctional Bucs organization and team that can't run the football. So Brady had to throw the ball 66 times a game. I'm not saying it wasn't a good win. It really was. And I give a lot of credit to Dak, who went out and he balled. But you're right. The time to celebrate is done. There is no chance that they beat the San Francisco 49ers. And if they do, by some miracle, it'll be on the shoulders of Dak, who is proving why he'd be the $40 million man.
Wow. That was fantastically well said. I don't really have anything to even kind of disagree with. You just kind of knocked off a bunch of stuff. And I think the only thing that I'll kind of like add to is the way that they play the game of football. Yes, they changed the way, but it's due to the way that football changed. So because it's so offense friendly and you're able to essentially play over the middle of the field now without getting killed. You can't touch the quarterback. Receivers, you can't really put hands on them. You're able to move the ball so easy. Flags fly. Just, you kind of look at a receiver wrong and they're throwing a pass interference call these days. So I think that's kind of what's played into it too, because they kind of decided, hey, we're going to bring some smash mouth football to you guys where it's like, we're going to run at you really hard and we're going to kind of hit you both in between the tackles and then run just off tackle and have tremendous offensive line schemes and with pulling guards and pulling tackles. And they just have a fantastic run game. But that same run game is what they're able to leverage to make them more aggressive in the pass game, because all they're doing, they're just coming right at you. Like they don't really run a lot of like, smoke and mirrors type of off. It's like, no. You're going to see what we're doing, but you're not going to stop what we're doing because it's perfectly designed. You have to make a choice on every single play. And Brock Purdy has a one easy read. Which way does the linebacker go? Is the linebacker choose this guy or this guy? Boom, he's open. Does the safety choose this guy or this guy? Boom, he's open. Did the corner stay right where he's at? Boom, this guy's open. It's so easy. It's so easy. And they're just absolutely killing it. I love it. So
but hold on. I want to say one more thing. I really like comparisons, especially between basketball and football. That's kind of like my one of the things I like to tinker with. I thought about this last night before, and I made sure that I had to put it into the show. If the San Francisco 49ers were a basketball player, singular basketball player, they would be Zion Williamson. And it's that old school bully ball. It's not the glam Steph Curry taking a three, pretty like, but you give the ball to Zion down low in the paint, and there is no chance you have of stopping him, just like the way the 49ers play football. It's smash mouth. It's old school. Both Zion and the 49ers dealing with a lot of injuries all the time, but it's because of their style of play. But when they're healthy, good Lord, good luck stopping it. It is it's too hard.
Which is funny. You said which NBA player, and I was like, okay, I'm going to think of my comparison really quick. I like how you went with Zion, and in my head, I was thinking Charles Barkley.
Yeah,
like
honestly,
just tremendously good, and because of Patrick Mahomes and Michael Jordan, they didn't get their ring, and so there's a chance that this year Patrick Mahomes can keep them from another
they
ring.
Don't get their ring.
So right. Trace, you know how these QB carousels work every year with how the NBA, I feel, has really, truly started to adopt a lot more of the NBA style of free agency, where not necessarily super teams are being made. And I don't think the NFL is transitioning that way. The cap has a really good way of doing that. And the game of football, it's too random. There's too many moving pieces. It's not as easy to just go ahead and just build an elite super team and just run through everybody. The Rams kind of did it and bought their way to their Super Bowl, but like that was also tested over 3 years. Like the Jared Goff team was good, but like they were still missing some pieces and they didn't win. And like the NFL, it's just capped better. So this season and our off season, but the season of the QB movement, we're going to go through and see which QB. So I'm going to basically bring up some different quarterbacks, and you're going to I'll kind of briefly give kind of what I think, and then I'm going to have you basically decide where they're going. So, starting it off first, we're going to start with the important one. Everyone kind of thinks on this one. Lamar Jackson. Greg Roman is no longer there.
Yep.
Harbaugh, the way he's kind of talking, it almost seems like the Ravens are trying to do their best to make it as easy for Lamar to come back as possible. But are they going to be able to pay him?
Well, I think this is not a matter of are they able to pay him? They absolutely can pay him. It's do they want to pay him, right? Or do they feel like Lamar has shown enough, especially with playoff runs, that he can be this $250 million all guaranteed money guy? And to that point, the answer would be just based on the optics of it, no, he's not. He hasn't done enough in the playoffs. He hasn't, gotten that AFC championship game or above, hasn't even made a Super Bowl, and has kind of been underwhelming in the playoffs. But with that being said, on the flip side, you could play devil's advocate as part of Lamar's camp and say, then who else are you going to do? Like, who else do you have? Tyler Huntley? Well, that worked really well. So there's kind of this no man's land that they're in between right now, where it's the Ravens are like, look, you haven't done enough. And Lamar's saying, if I haven't done enough, who are you going to get to do it? So I believe that this tension is so great, there's no way this works out. I think Lamar's gone. I think he's played his last game as a Raven. And I believe Lamar Jackson will end up next year in Miami.
That's a solid take. Miami could be interesting. That would be a relatively unstoppable offense. You would have three of the fastest, if not the fastest,
Players.
guys in the entire NFL. You would have the three fastest players in the entire NFL, thanks to, Ruggs would have been number 2, but, he went a little too fast and he's behind bars. So. Up next, where do we think the GOAT, Tom Brady, is going to go?
Well,
he could stay. He could go to Miami. He could go to California and be with the 49ers. There's a lot of talk for Vegas. Trace, what say you?
Well, so Tom, if you were to ask me as a fan and not as someone who's doing some breakdown, of the actual situation going on, I would tell you Tom needs to retire. Right, 45 years old. It's time to rekindle that flame he had with Giselle. Look, obviously they've spent their entire lives together, and it's clear that this decision to unretire caused a major rift in their marriage. And Tom, he's not getting it done in the same way that he used to. I understand he's playing at an elite level for a 45-year-old, and it's never been done. It's unprecedented. However, Tom, he just needs to know when to hang it up, but I don't think he will. The actual answer that I'm going to give is that I believe Tom is done in Tampa Bay. I think there's too much chaos behind that. There wasn't enough, of Brady's liking in the coaching department. Brian Leftwich didn't do a good job. He's gone. BA upstairs, sitting that back, laughing, smoking a stogie, saying, told you, you can't do anything without me. So I believe that he reunites with Josh McDaniels in Vegas, and he's the next quarterback of the Las Vegas Raiders.
All right. So Tom Brady to the Raiders. That's kind of my pick on that one. I think Vegas is the only one that actually makes sense because, him versus Derek Carr is really the only kind of conversation. I think that's really the upgrade that they need. Speaking of Derek Carr, so knowing that Tom Brady is a very strong candidate of ending up with the Raiders, where do we see Derek Carr going?
So, do you know when a couple gets divorced, how it's usually the guy that has to move out and he has to go find something spur of the moment? He's got to move out of his own home. He's got to go find something for the single life, got to find an apartment for a year, maybe 2. I think that's exactly what's happening to Derek Carr. I think he's getting pushed out of a house and of a relationship that he doesn't necessarily want to be in anymore, but it's more of like, hit the road, Jack. Derek Carr is going to end up in the only place that plays rent a QB And it makes me laugh because, God, you'd think they would just go out and draft someone, but he's going to end up as a member of the Indianapolis Colts. Matt Ryan, he needs to get some new legs or something like that. He's about as mobile as a freaking stone. But yeah, Derek Carr ends up in Indy as their 8th or 9,000th QB in the last 6 years. Mark it down. He'll be in Indianapolis soon enough.
Derek Carr from the Raiders to the Colts. I think that has some steam, but honestly, it ain't working in Las Vegas.
No.
It sucks because they had some real potential and they just absolutely played terrible. They were the exact inverse of the Vikings this year, where they lost almost every single one of their one-score games, where the Vikings kept it on the opposite side in the positive, where they won almost every single one of those games until the Giants.
That's true.
But what about Jimmy G? So there's all this 49er talk. Everyone keeps talking about, well, there's the 49er spot open. There could be someone, Jimmy G, maybe do I hear going back and reuniting with his old savior in Bill Belichick?
Well,
does Mac Jones leave?
This one's interesting. And I'll say this because I think he's done in San Francisco. Let me just put that out there. But the market for Jimmy G is an interesting one because, as we saw, he was kind of put up for bid earlier on in the year when they were going with Trey Lance. So that month and a half to 2 months prior to the NFL season starting, nobody bid for him, which was weird. And then they put him back in after Trey Lance gets hurt and everyone's like, oh, Jimmy G, we love Jimmy G. But do they really love Jimmy G? I think liking Jimmy G is more of a media statistic. Like, it's a smoke and mirrors tactic. It's almost like people behind closed doors don't love Jimmy G. They like him on the surface. So I'm going to say that Jimmy G, most likely, if he was going to end up somewhere, he probably would end up back with Belichick. But here's the thing. I believe Jimmy G, and this is going to be a kind of a hot take, I think he starts the season with no team. I think he's an unrestricted free agent. I think he's just out there waiting for someone to pick up. And of course, there's going to be some sort of, QB injured. One star is going to get injured. He's going to be out for 7 weeks or 8 weeks. And then someone's going to make a call. Jimmy G's going to come in and he's going to win 5 games. He's going to go 5-2 or 5-3. And everyone's going to be like, oh, there's a controversy in Tennessee. There's a controversy in Vegas or wherever he ends up in, or in New England. But then again, once the starter comes back, Jimmy G takes role on the bench. I feel bad for the guy. He's done nothing but win and nobody wants him. It's just the most odd, bizarre situation of any NFL quarterback I've ever seen.
I think Jimmy G's only problem is the fact that he signed that giant contract and then he got hurt twice. That's, I think, his really only downside. So moving on from Jimmy G to the guy who's right behind him in Trey Lance. And we're seeing good Purdy's been playing, and there's rumors that Trey Lance could be going out on the trade wire.
Ooh,
so where do we think Trey Lance ends up next year?
Another kid I feel really bad for. Just as Trey Lance was finally starting to get into the role where he's like, okay, I've got my team. It's just time for me to go out and ball. Worry about football. Go out there, have a good, play hard. Finally won the locker room. Everyone's like, yep, it's Trey's team. He gets hurt. Season-ending injury. And I think the 49ers have seen all they need to see. They're going to say, look, listen, kid, we love you. We think you're great. We obviously reached too far. The injury didn't help. We got to let you go. It's just one of those decisions where it's not it's kind of like it's not you, it's us. We need someone to start right now. But here's where I think the most interesting part comes in. With Lamar heading out of Baltimore, one thing that Baltimore is going to be looking for is not to pay a quarterback the amount of money, because if they were going to look to pay a quarterback that much money, they would just pay Lamar, wouldn't they? No, they're going to look for a cheaper option. And I believe they're going to make the next quarterback who comes in there earn every single bit of that money. And that means going deep into the playoffs. So I believe Trey Lance is going to get picked up by the Baltimore Ravens, and he's going to have to play the final 2 seasons on that rookie contract and try and make it to the playoffs. And of course, he won't be paid nearly as much as Lamar Jackson is asking for, but could he be a $25 million per year guy? Who knows? Could he be a 25, could he be a 4-year, $100 million quarterback? Absolutely. And I think the Ravens would say done and done. Put that on it. We're going to go out and get a quarterback who plays sort of like Lamar. He's got that mobility. He's got the arm strength. He just needs a chance to show what he's got. And I think that's exactly what the Ravens are going to be looking for if they get rid of Lamar. Trey Lance as a Baltimore Raven.
I like Trey to the Ravens. I think the only other team that would want to do the same test, I think the Jets are in that same pool of, I think Trey is better than Zach Wilson. I think the Jets are really looking for a guy because they know Zach can't really play. I think Trey has a really strong chance of ending up in New York for the exact same reason that they're looking for somebody, and they know they reached on Zach. They might try to find in someone that's slightly better, that's more talented, that might give some juice. But I just feel bad for him because, like you said, he came in, he was getting a chance to play, gets hurt, and there it goes. Up next, do we think Justin Fields stays in Chicago? There was some talk to the same reason that you were saying with the Ravens. The Ravens are in the situation. You said they don't want to pay somebody. Could it be a straight up swap in some sense? Do we think Justin Fields will start the season next year as a Chicago Bear?
I do. As Colin Cowherd says, I'm going to buy that. Look, Fields showed one thing this season that he didn't show in his rookie season, and that is the ability to make big plays, right? That's what it came down to. We can talk all we want about how he needs to become a more polished passer. I agree with all of it. He inside the pocket, his mechanics break down. He's got way too jumpy feet. He just he gets all kind of sloppy. He gets tight. And in kind of the inverse, like you were saying, he gets with that becomes loose. His mechanics get all sloppy and kind of gross. So it's like a tight but loose. Like he becomes rigid. So that just makes him kind of fling the ball, or instead of throwing it or looking for his second read, he just takes off and runs because that's what he's comfortable with. No, I think what's going to end up happening are the Bears are going to say, okay, look, first season, we get it. You're a rookie. Second season, you've showed you can make some plays. We believe that your trajectory of your career is a lot like Jalen Hurts. So we're going to give you the pieces. We're going to buy you receivers. We're going to buy you a team, and we're going to build around you. And if you can't take that next step and make the playoffs next year, then clearly after year 3, you're not our guy. But no, I believe Justin Fields has earned himself one more year in Chicago.
I think that is all he earned himself. I think 1 year, like you said, the pieces will be established around him. And if he doesn't make it work this year, the Bears know he is the reason, not the other pieces. Now, staying in division, where does old Aaron head out? Do we think he comes back and plays in Green Bay? Do you think he ends up done? Do you think he goes to Cali? Do you think he goes to New York, Tennessee? Where do you think Rodgers will land next season?
Well, the first thing I think he's doing, I think he is going to California to do some more ayahuasca. I think he's going to find himself a little bit more in the hills of California. Maybe do some peyote as well. I don't know. I'm just playing.
It's good for it. It's good for you.
It's like Wheaties. So here's the interesting thing about Rodgers. And I, obviously being in the middle of Packers country, Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, which is an hour south of Green Bay, I can tell you this. Majority of the folks here in Green Bay are done, right? They're done with Rodgers. They think, listen, the guy is obviously on his way out. He costs way too much money. He doesn't want to practice, doesn't want to rebuild. He said that on the Pat McAfee show. I'm done rebuilding. He goes, I don't want to be a part of that. If I can bring my guys back, if I bring Randall Cobb and Lazard and David Bakhtiari back, I will come back and play, another season for the Green Bay Packers. But Lazard's already on his way out. He already told the Packers he's not interested in re-signing. You're obviously still working with the development of Christian Watson and Romeo Dobbs. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, that's bound to be split up sometime soon. A.J. Dillon's going to want out there and want to get his money, especially with the amount of production that he's put into this team. I just think the time has come for the Rodgers era to end in Green Bay. And I actually believe that the rumors to Tennessee, they're not going to come to fruition. The rumors to San Francisco, they're not going to come to fruition. I believe Aaron Rodgers retires. I think he's done. I think he's accomplished all he wants to accomplish. He's got his money. He's got his fame. He's got his girlfriend. He's got his legacy. He'll be a Hall of Fame quarterback, first ballot, no doubt. I think he's done. I think Rodgers retires.
All right. Aaron Rodgers to Jeopardy it is. And last up on this one is the overall number 1 pick, previously by the Cleveland Browns, then sent to Carolina, then sent to the Rams. Where do we see this former Heisman winner and super progressive commercial making quarterback in Baker Mayfield?
All right. So look, I actually believe Baker is going to be trending here in the right direction. I think he makes a mature move. I believe there's a team out there. I'm not going to say what teams because I don't know which teams have actually reached out to contact or if any have reached out to contact him. But I will
The
say
XFL?
that maybe that. I believe that there's going to be a starting spot offer for Baker Mayfield. I don't think he takes it. I think he's going to, I think he realizes, look, if I just keep bouncing around from team to team to team, I've got maybe 2 years, maximum 3 of time left in the NFL before I'm cut and I am done. So what am I going to do? I'm going to sit back. I'm going to learn. I'm going to watch Matt Stafford, learn from him, get another season under my belt with Sean McVay, take the year off. Sometimes you got to take a step back to take a step forward, right? So it's 2 steps back to take 3 steps forward. I think that's what Baker Mayfield's going to do. I think he's going to sit there. He's going to swallow his pride. He's going to take his lumps. And he says, look, I'm not going to be a starting quarterback this year. I'm going to learn. I'm going to be a backup. I'm going to be a great backup. And if I do get the chance to play, I'm going to be fantastic. And I think that's the point of his career where he's at right now. He's probably the best backup in the league or one of the best bridge quarterbacks. He and Mitch Trubisky up there along with Tyler Huntley. So if he really believes that he can be a starting quarterback, which I think we've seen enough from him that says, yes, he can do it with the right pieces and the right system around him. But I think he's got to swallow his pride, take a step back and say, for 1 year, I'm a backup. And I think that's what he does.
My problem with Baker Mayfield, and you know this because I've said it for a long time since college, he's undersized, under athletic, under arm strength, under accurate. I mean, he is a subpar quarterback in a lot of categories, and yet somehow he's managed to stay in the league. I said when he was coming into the NFL, the fact that he had won a Heisman, he had played with Lincoln Riley in a tremendous offense and, put up great numbers and put up great stats and took OU to, good bowl games and was never able to win them, but he was always competitive. And there was a couple of games that, they looked really hot and they really gave it a good run. But at the end of the day, Baker Mayfield is what I knew he was going to be. He's going to be a flashy guy that shows some sparks of some really good plays. But at the end of the day, he's going to end up bouncing around the NFL. He'll probably have a 10 to 12-year career. He's just going to be a venture guy that, like you said, a bridge quarterback, a backup guy. We're going to see it 3 years from now. You're going to have some random roster where you go look at, and Baker Mayfield's going to be on the depth chart. So that way he can continue to be an NFL level quarterback as long as he can. He's going to be, the backup guy. He's going to compete for a starting job in a lot of spots because he does it just good enough, but there's only so many teams that are willing to put up with all the BS that he brings, with all of his stupid progressive commercials, with all the other nonsense that he does, both on the field and off the field. He's just not a franchise quarterback. He doesn't have the right attitude, and he's not a good enough athlete and or quarterback to maintain that position. He's good enough. We've seen him play well, but like you said, he's a backup talent. Now, he can be a backup for a really long time, and that's I exactly knew it was going to happen. I'm pretty sure you can probably go to a Switch Up Sports podcast from 4 years ago, and I probably said Baker Mayfield is going to end up in the league 10 years and he's going to be on, 5 different teams or something. Like, I don't remember it, but like, I know I said Baker Mayfield's going to be a journeyman in the NFL.
Kind
He's
of
going
like
to
Nick
get
Foles.
Nick Foles. You can look at, what was the guy with New England for all those years? Brian
Hoyer.
Yes. Like that
Brian
is
Hoyer.
exactly what Baker Mayfield is. He's that guy.
I believe Baker has the it factor in the sense of competitiveness. And I think he's got that chip on his shoulder that a lot of those guys don't have, those journeymen don't have. But I think you're right. I think the discipline that Baker has to step back and say, how do I lead an NFL franchise of grown men? Mind you, this isn't college, right? Like Baker can have all that snarkiness and all that, crotch grabbing at OU because they're just better than 9 out of the 12 teams that they play. And those 3 games that you got to get up, they're also in the Big 12. So they're going to let up 450 yards passing and 4 touchdowns. So even if you lose that game, you can still say, well, hey, Baker had a great game. So
Right.
look, I think you're right. I think Baker, but like I said, I think Baker takes a step back this year. And I think getting older, now he's going into his 4th or 5th season. Maybe it's his 5th in the NFL. I think it's finally time to look back and say, hey, I can take a year off to take the next 6 years of my career forward. And I believe he can earn a starting spot again. It just has to be under the right circumstances.
There it is. So, Trace, I want to hit you with our sports stat of the week.
Fun.
As
Let's
we're
do it.
back. We're now on to week 2 of shows. So, this sports stat, it's kind of ridiculous to think about because it took 1,865 kickoffs before the Buccaneers ever returned one for a touchdown. And so, being Bears fans, think about all the times that Devin Hester returned both punts and kicks, especially the fact that that's how the 05-06 Super Bowl kicked off. Devin Hester, opening kick, takes it back to the house. And the Buccaneers, it took them 1,865 kickoffs before they ever returned one. How crazy is that?
It's amazing. And I remember Devin Hester playing. There's a lot of new Bears fans, kids that were born right around the same time that Devin Hester was playing. They don't remember him other than a YouTube highlight. But I remember Devin Hester playing. And I got to tell you, there was a specific memory that I have of watching a game where they played the Minnesota Vikings. And when that punter kicked the ball to Devin Hester, I said out loud, this is a touchdown. I can just feel it. And it was. I mean, that was the kind of player that he was. You were so scared of kicking him the football because on any given moment, he was by you. I mean, and it wasn't even like he had the most blinding speed. He was fast, but he wasn't the fastest. It wasn't like he had the greatest juke of all time. He wasn't the shiftiest player, but he never got touched ever. It was like he just knew where every hole was. It was remarkable. I have never seen anything like it. And that includes Deion Sanders and Barry Sanders, who both were amazing kick returners, Hall of Fame kick returners in their own right, not just at their positions. But Devin Hester was something else. He was the only guy in the NFL that you were like, good God, one player on one side of the ball that is rarely ever talked about can make the difference in this game.
100%. And I had that same memory when he played the Broncos in Denver and he returned 2 of them in the same game. Like I remember it as clear as day, watching in my living room, like just hyped up in my Bears pajamas, like so happy as like a 9-year-old or however old I was at the time.
Right.
So our impossible trivia question from last week was, who was the last Chicago Bears player drafted number 1 overall? So Trace, this stat for the Bears traces all the way back to 1947 was the last time that the Bears drafted number 1 overall. They took a halfback in Bob Fenimore. He went to Oklahoma State. He played a whopping 10 NFL games. He had 53 rushes for 189 yards and a touchdown, pulling in 15 receptions for 219 yards and 2 touchdowns.
So he did a little bit more with the receiving game than he did on the ground.
back in 1947, but one and done. 10 NFL games. And
He
he's
probably
like,
got
all right,
drafted. Well, that was
good with
actually
me.
That was after World War II. So maybe he got drafted in Korea. Maybe that's why.
Could have. So our question for next week that will get answered.
Let's do it.
Who is the last league MVP that also won a Super Bowl in the same year?
Ooh, that's a good question. That's a very good question.
It is. It has happened. So I know some people will be like, oh, that's never happened. It has happened. And
I have a guess. I'm not going to say it because I'm going to wait for next week, but I kind of have a guess at who it is.
All right. Well, we'll find out next week on Friday's show.
Yes, we will. All right. Well, and I think that just about does it here on this week's episode of Say It Like You See It. Have a wonderful divisional round here this weekend. Hopefully, we see you again on Tuesday. We have our picks. I have the Chiefs. I have the Eagles. I have the Bills. And I have the 49ers. Quinn, if you want to give your rundown one more time of your 4 winners this weekend, who you got?
I am the same as you. I think the Chiefs win going away. I think the Eagles win a close game where the Giants cover on the points. I am going differ from you. I think the Bengals will pull out a victory against the Bills just to be a little bit different. I think Josh Allen is phenomenal. I think if they go out and they absolutely torch him, I'm not going to be shocked. But I think the Bengals make it like a disgusting close game, and I think the Bengals pull it out. But then the 49ers win going away in the nightcap on Sunday.
I think so too. It's going to be a great weekend of football. We cannot wait to see you again. Remember to go like us on our social medias, on TikTok, that's Say It Like You See It. Our Instagram, Say It Like You See It pod on the screen right here. You can also find us on Facebook, on YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. From the AirTech Heating Studios here in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, and Fargo, North Dakota, I am Trace the Moose Moustakis alongside Mighty Q, the Quinn himself. Quinn, I will see you on Tuesday, my friend. Let's get into it. Let's watch some football later, huh?
Oh, yeah. I think stay tuned. So Trace, he made sure to say on the social media, so stay tuned. There is a chance that we do live stream one of the games this weekend. So just stay tuned on socials. We'll let you guys know before we go live. And other than that, I think we'll see you guys on Tuesday. Stay tuned for the social.
Sweet. Love it. See you, Quinn.